Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at some fascinating research, really a wide-ranging exploration of American ethnic history. It's all about progress, success, struggles, a huge topic.
It really is. And our goal today, I think, is to get beyond the sort of easy answers you often hear. Things like, oh, it was just discrimination, or maybe they started out richer.
Right, those simple explanations.
Exactly. We want to dig into the more complex stuff, the specific cultures, the critical timing of when groups arrived, the kind of skills and structures they brought with them. That's what really seems to shape the journey here.
And the scale we're talking about is just, well, it's kind of staggering when you think about it. The source material mentions 45 million people crossing oceans, continents to come to the U.S.
45 million. It's an incredible number. And you, the listener, probably see this reflected around you all the time. I mean, think about it. There are more people with Irish ancestry here now than in Ireland itself.
Wow.
Yeah. And New York City alone has more people claiming Italian roots than, say, Venice. It's remarkable.
Yet, despite all that diversity, America functions as this huge culturally and linguistically connected area.
Yeah.
Like the size of the Roman Empire at its peak, but mostly speaking one language, part of one economy. And crucially, there's no single majority group.
That's a key point. The largest group with European roots, the British, is only about, 15%?
Yeah. Just barely ahead of German Americans at 13%, or Black Americans at 11%.
So it truly is a mosaic, and that makes understanding why some groups advanced economically faster than others, well, it makes it really challenging.
Okay, so let's tackle that challenge. A good starting point is the economic picture, right? The source uses a family income index, setting the U.S. average at 100. And the differences are stark. You have Jewish Americans way up at 172, Japanese Americans at 132.
Playing near the top.
But then down near the bottom, you see Black Americans at 62, Puerto Ricans at 63. Big gaps.
Huge gaps, and they jump right out at you. But the very first thing we need to adjust for, something that often gets missed, is age.
Age. How big a factor is that?
It's massive. You're often looking at a 10, even 20-year difference in the median age between groups.
20 years. That's a whole generation.
Exactly. Think about it. The average Jewish American is over 40, but for Mexican Americans, Puerto Ricans, the median age is under 20.
Okay, I see where this is going. The higher paying jobs, the professional roles, they take time, experience, education.
Precisely. Those jobs are concentrated in the older age brackets. The source gives an example. Polish Americans have twice the percentage of people aged 45 or older compared to American Indians.
So just being an older group, on average, gives you a significant income boost because more people are in their peak earning years.
Absolutely. That life cycle effect accounts for a big chunk of the difference right there, before we even get to other factors.
Okay, so age is critical. But even adjusting for that, we still see big differences. And this brings us to that really common explanation. Discrimination.
Right. The discrimination paradox, as the source material seems to frame it, because, look, discrimination was real, it was pervasive, it was morally abhorrent, and it absolutely affected incomes, no question. But it wasn't the single deciding factor for economic success. It's more complicated than that.
How so? That feels counterintuitive, especially for groups who faced horrific prejudice.
Because counterintuitively, some of the groups highest on that income index specifically, Asian American, Jewish Americans face some of the most vicious, systematic discrimination imaginable.
Worse than many groups who ended up lower on the index.
Arguably, yes. Think about the centuries of anti-Semitism Jews faced in Europe before they even got here. Pogroms, restrictions, massacres. Their success in America was achieved despite that history, not in its absence. The level of prejudice doesn't neatly map onto the economic outcomes.
That forces you to think differently, doesn't it? To separate the moral outrage from the actual cause and effect mechanism.
Exactly. It's about causation, not justification.
Let's dive into some specific group histories that really illustrate this complexity. The Irish are a fascinating first case.
Okay, the Irish. They achieved political power really fast, but their economic progress was slower.
Much slower. They were the first huge ethnic minority wave in the cities, 19th century, and they started right at the bottom, digging ditches, working as maids. Conditions were brutal. There's that chilling quote from the time, "You seldom see a gray-haired Irishman."
Because life expectancy was so low.
Around 40 years, yeah, just ground down by poverty and hard labor.
But politically, they dominated. Tammany Hall controlling entire cities. How would they pull that off so quickly from such a low starting point?
They had a few key things going for them. One, they spoke English. Huge advantage.
No language barrier.
Right. 2, intense group solidarity born from shared oppression back home. And 3, crucially, they brought political skills with them. Experience from Ireland running, well, underground networks, religious, sometimes paramilitary against British rule. They knew how to organize. So political savvy was part of their cultural toolkit.
Absolutely. But here's the paradox. Despite that political dominance, the source says they were the slowest rising European group economically.
Why the lag?
Cultural priorities. Education wasn't the main focus. The source notes that ancient Celtic culture, historically, was kind of hostile to literacy. Ireland didn't build a university in the Middle Ages, unlike much of Europe. The focus was on immediate needs, political power, not long-term educational investment.
But the political focus, combined with the harsh conditions, sometimes led to conflict, right?
Definitely. High levels of intergroup hostility. Bloody clashes with the Scotch-Irish One Orange Day riot in 1871 left nearly 50 dead. Violence against Germans, Italians, Chinese too. It was a rough environment.
Okay, so that's the Irish. Politics first, economics later, lots of friction. How does that compare to the Jewish experience? You said they started poor too, but their path was different.
Very different. East European Jews often arrived absolutely penniless. Less money even than the Irish often had. Many couldn't speak English initially. On paper, they were starting way behind.
But they climbed fast. What was their engine?
Human capital, but a specific kind. Centuries of cultural reverence for learning, deeply ingrained through religious study, like the Talmud. That created a value system focused on intellectual development.
And practical skills too.
Yes. They also had long experience in urban life, in commerce, in trades from Europe, skills that were directly transferable to the American economy.
So even when they lived in slums, the source says they had the social patterns and values of the middle class. What does that mean in practice?
It means things like much lower rates of alcoholism, violence, crime compared to other groups in similar poverty, higher voting rates, a focus on stability, on family, on saving.
You mentioned they were often illiterate in English at first. So how did education become key? Was it the cause of their rise or a result?
That's a crucial distinction the source makes. Initially, higher education was more of a consequence of their early economic success, not the primary cause.
How did they get that initial success then?
Through intense work ethic and entrepreneurial spirit. They flocked to trades like the garment industry. They started as peddlers, saved diligently, and became shop owners. That business acumen, that drive, built the initial foundation.
And then came the big push into higher education.
Exactly. Once they had some economic stability, that deep cultural value placed on learning kicked in. They invested heavily in educating the next generation, which then propelled them into the professions doctors, lawyers, scientists, cementing their high position on the income index.
Fascinating. Labor and business first, then education consolidates the gains. Okay, let's contrast that with the Italians. Their focus, you mentioned, was different again, all about the family.
Almost exclusively the immediate family. The experience of Southern Italian peasants was different from the Irish. They were often oppressed by landlords and authorities of the same nationality and religion.
Not an external enemy.
Right. Which fostered this intense, almost suffocating reliance on nobody but your closest kin. The source points out it's hard to even find a word for community in Southern Italian dialects that doesn't just mean the immediate family.
And how did that translate in America, especially regarding something like education?
It meant education wasn't the priority. Family loyalty was everything. This led to high rates of kids dropping out of school early, high truancy. The thinking was it was the bad son who wanted to go to school instead of to work and help the family survive now.
Work over school.
Work over school, absolutely. And this fierce self-reliance extended to hardship. They hated charity, would only accept help if they were literally starving or sick.
I remember reading that detail. They'd hold up their hands, calloused from work, and say, America is here, meaning this is how you make it. Through your own labor.
Exactly that, earned through toil. Interestingly, unlike the Irish example, this intense inward focus meant Italians generally coexisted peacefully with other groups. Jews, Chinese. Their energy wasn't directed outward in conflict, but inward on the family unit.
Okay, let's switch gears to Asian Americans, Chinese, and Japanese. Their story involves overcoming extreme, legally sanctioned discrimination.
Some of the worst. The Chinese Exclusion Act, Japanese alien land laws preventing property ownership, and of course, the mass internment of Japanese Americans during World War II. Huge state-sponsored barriers.
Yet remarkable economic success eventually. How?
Incredible diligence and work ethic, often commented on at the time. Japanese farm workers, for instance, working piece rate, could earn up to twice as much as others because they were just that efficient and focused. Reports constantly cited their effort, thrift, dependability, and foresight.
But the internment, that must have been devastating economically. How does that fit the mobility narrative? It seems like a paradox.
It is a tragic paradox. The internment was an unimaginable injustice causing huge losses, especially for the first generation, the Issei, who lost businesses, farms, everything.
But for the second generation, the Nisei.
For the American-born Nisei, the outcome was complex. While they suffered the trauma of the camps, the internment actually broke certain bonds. It shattered the expectation that they would just follow their parents into farming or small businesses, which were now gone.
So it inadvertently opened up new paths.
In a way, yes. After the war, freed from those specific, often limiting parental expectations tied to lost livelihoods, many Nisei pursued higher education and entered new professional fields, maybe faster than they would have otherwise. It unintentionally accelerated their long-run upward mobility, even born from immense suffering.
A really difficult thing to wrap your head around. An injustice leading indirectly to faster progress for some.
History is messy. It rarely fits neat moral boxes.
Let's turn now to the more recent trajectories, starting with Black Americans. The shadow of slavery is obviously enormous here.
Foundational. A system explicitly designed to destroy family structures, deny education, and enforce dependence. The legacy is undeniable and profound.
But the source also highlights important distinctions within the Black experience based on history and timing.
Yes. Critically, you have to look at the descendants of the free persons of color. Nearly 500,000 people who were already free before the Civil War in 1860.
They had a head start.
Generations of a head start in terms of literacy, skills, navigating free society. This group provided a disproportionate amount of Black leadership for decades into the 20th century. Think W.E.B. Du Bois, Thurgood Marshall. Many came from this lineage.
And then there was the Great Migration North. That was a huge upheaval.
A massive traumatic social change, millions moving from the rural South to northern cities. Places like Harlem only became predominantly Black after 1910. We saw with other groups that this kind of rapid, dislocating migration often takes generations to adjust to.
And it led to some recurring social problems.
Sadly, yes. A reappearance of social pathologies, crime, family breakdown, substance abuse, things often associated with the shock of urbanization and discrimination in a new environment. It takes time to rebuild community structures.
The source also contrasts the experience of American Blacks with West Indians. What's the key difference there?
It's fascinating. West Indians often faced even harsher forms of slavery. But crucially, they often had centuries of experience managing small plots of land, growing their own food, and selling the surplus in local markets.
And experienced American slaves were largely denied.
Exactly. That gave them direct, practical experience with market economies, with saving, with sort of small-scale management that American Blacks typically lacked due to the totality of the plantation system.
And does that difference still matter today?
It seems to. Socioeconomically, West Indian immigrants and their descendants in the U.S. remain, on average, distinct from native-born Black Americans, despite facing similar racial discrimination. That pre-migration cultural capital matters.
Okay, finally, Puerto Ricans. Their story has unique timing elements, too.
Very unique. They are the first large group whose migration happened primarily by air, allowing for rapid back-and-forth movement. And significantly, they're the first group to arrive after the American welfare state was fully established.
How does that context shape their situation? They have the lowest median age, high unemployment.
High return migration, too. They are also highly urbanized, more so than the general U.S. population. And the welfare system provides a different kind of safety net, but also potentially different incentives compared to earlier groups who arrived when such support didn't exist.
Education is also a major point of discussion for this group.
Yes, challenges remain. High rates of Spanish spoken at home, around 72%. This has fueled ongoing, often contentious debates about policies like bilingual education or even banning IQ tests as ways to address achievement gaps. It's a complex picture shaped by that unique timing and context.
So we've covered a lot of ground. Irish political focus, Jewish human capital, Italian family structure, Asian work ethic, the legacies affecting Black Americans, the unique timing for Puerto Ricans. When you pull it all together, what's the big takeaway for the listener?
I think the core insight looking across all these histories is that you really have to consider two things happening at once. External factors, discrimination, economic conditions. When a group arrived, they are absolutely critical, often tragic.
Can't ignore those.
Definitely not. But internal cultural factors between the group's values, their attitudes towards education, family structure, their historical experience with commerce or politics, what the source calls human capital, these often seem to be the independent drivers.
So the culture acts like the engine, determining how effectively a group navigates the external circumstances. It shapes the pace, the direction of their progress.
That seems to be the argument, yes. It determines the channel through which a group advances politics for one, business for another, education for a third, even when facing similar obstacles or starting poverty.
Which brings us back to that difficult point about discrimination.
It does, because this whole exploration really pushes us to distinguish between the moral judgment of prejudice, which is clear, and its actual causal weight in explaining group outcomes. It's not about saying discrimination doesn't matter, but asking how it matters in relation to these internal cultural factors.
And that leaves us with a challenging final thought, doesn't it? Something for you, the listener, to really wrestle with.
Right. The source essentially asks, if simple bigotry, if oppression alone was the sufficient explanation for why some groups have lower incomes, then how do you explain the success of groups like Jewish Americans or Japanese Americans?
Yeah.
They face extraordinary hostility, yet reach the top economically.
It suggests causation is far more complex than just pointing to external barriers.
Exactly. It forces a harder look, a more nuanced understanding that separates the undeniable moral wrong of discrimination from its precise role as a cause and effect factor in the long, complex story of group progress in America.